Hey everyone, it's Trish
and Brecken,
and we're here with part 2 of our mom series, and this time we want to talk about breastfeeding. So I think we're both very strong advocates that if you can and you want to, that it's definitely something that you should give a try.
and we think that maybe hearing some of the tips that we're going to share is going to help you be successful, even if you've already tried breastfeeding one and you're getting ready to have another. I think just having some of these things maybe you haven't thought of, just in the back of your mind, and maybe searching out some of these options ahead of time so that you're prepared. Maybe you don't think that you need them, but maybe hearing some of what we've been through or what some of our family have been through, you're going to go, I better put that down just in case I need it. And I think that that's very important to have some of these tips just in your back pocket. Might not need it right away, but you might need it, within the first couple months. And so that's what we want to share with you, just some of our experiences and, our life.
Our trials and tribulations. And I guess just to give you a little bit of background, my son was born 4 weeks early by C-section, and I did not attend a breastfeeding class prior to that. I guess my mom had 3 kids, and she was very just, movie style. You hold them up and they latch on and you nurse, and that's that. And my mom nursed all of us for a year and a half, I think my little brother, till he decided he wanted to stop. So in my mind I was like, oh, it'll be great. It was easy for my mom and it'll be easy for me. And my son was born early. He went to the NICU overnight, which they gave him a bottle. And then when they brought him to me, and I had no real, I held him up there and I did what I thought I knew was the right thing, and not much happened. So that would be, I guess, tip number 1 that we both agree on. Attend a breastfeeding class if you intend to breastfeed.
Yeah. And we went ahead and did a breastfeeding class. Both my husband and I went, and, we did all the classes that you're supposed to do ahead of time. And we did the breastfeeding one. And I recommend that you go with your husband or your spouse, because we both sat there and I was just glared at the lady pinning the baby up to the breast, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And that is all that I got, was observing her putting the baby up to the breast. And to this day, that's all I can really remember from it. And my husband actually was the one who took notes and had it all down, and he's like, Brecken, when we had Paxton, he was like, don't you remember this? Don't you remember that? I was like, no, I couldn't tell you what happened. And then I would go back and find all those forms that I'd gone, that we had seen at the breastfeeding class, but all I remember is her putting the baby up to the breast. And so you might say, well, Brecken, we don't need to go, but my husband is the one who took the notes and who remembered everything. And that's why I say go with a support person, because you're going to need someone else who's hearing that information. Because I think for me, it was just, wow, this is really happening. And so I couldn't really get past that. And that was just me. But my husband, thank God, had written his notes and had saved everything. And so that's why I say the support person is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can just tell you from experience that, if you do end up having your child early, we both have experienced that or have a C-section. With my daughter, it was just a few days earlier than was already scheduled, that your milk is not going to have come in. And so a really important thing, and to be adamant about at your hospital, is to start that pumping right away. I think that is very, very important, because you may get that perfect latch, but there is not a lot there for your child. And especially if they're born early, they might be small to get their nourishment from. So definitely be adamant about getting that pump the
hospital grade pump.
The hospital grade that you want it and you plan to breastfeed, and be very specific with your nurses.
And I think, having that plan in place is very important, just even before you have the baby, just saying, this is what I want in my stay. This is what I want for my baby. I am pro breastfeeding. I don't want a bottle. These are the things that I want to try. If for some reason, the latch doesn't work, or he's not getting enough, or she's not getting enough, then this is the next step I want to take. And I think we were adamant about breastfeeding, but we were adamant about breastfeeding. We didn't know if there was another option until after Paxton had been given a bottle. And so then when we had Parker, he was born 11 weeks early, and he was in the NICU for a lengthy stay. And closer to the end, he actually was really good at jumping on, and they were all amazed. At 33 weeks we were finally able to try and start breastfeeding, and it was very exciting, because I was like, oh my gosh, I finally have a child who knows how to latch and knows how to do all this, so I just get to sit and do what the baby in the lady in the breastfeeding class did, and just throw the baby up and they go. So I was excited. But then as we got closer to term, he wasn't, staying on for as long. He was falling asleep, which is very typical of preemies. And so they were just telling me that we needed to do bottles and bottles and bottles, and I was very adamant. I said, absolutely not. I don't care if that's my ticket home, that I want to breastfeed and my son needs that nourishment, and I will do anything in my power to do that. And thankfully, where he was in the NICU, they had an amazing lactation group of women, and every single one of them were amazing. And so I told him, I said, if you can't do that, then I want to do the cup feeding. And, you know, I kind of got like kind of the roll of the eyes, and I want to do that. And the lactation came in, and they're like, go, Brecken. Like, that is what we want to hear, and we will support him. And they said that the nurses are all trained in it, and that is the next step, that if you aren't getting nourishment, that then you do the cup feeding, because that's still supporting of the putting the baby to the breast. And so it's not giving them a different type of nipple that's going to confuse them. It's actually just giving them the nourishment that they need. You can see how much you're giving it. And so that is the next step before bottles. And he could have gone home on cup feedings if that's what we went to, but he ended up going to breastfeeding. So
yeah. Right. And I guess I didn't even really know my options or anything outside of just holding the baby up and hoping that it worked out. With my son, I did use a shield, just because he was early, and I've heard, and I'm just telling you off of what I've heard, that boys especially, and early boys, just aren't as with it as ladies are. And so that helped. But it was also very frustrating because you have to get it damp, and you have to get it on there, and you're trying to keep it on there while you're getting the baby on, and that type of thing. And really with my son, he never really became a great breastfeeder. And I did end up pumping a lot for him, which I do consider, if you're somebody out there that it's just hard for you for whatever reason to still, if you can pump milk and they can still get breast milk that way, that's, they're still getting the breast milk, which is the most important thing. Now with my daughter, she latched on right away, but again, my milk had not come in, and she was small. And, they were just very like, at every weigh, and they're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, they freak out, she's going to lose more than 10% of her body weight. And I finally had a lactation consultant there that came around and showed me a tube feeding, which no one showed me for my son, where you use a tube, or they get, for my daughter's case, she got latched on, which she had no problem with that. And then you take a little tube kind of in the corner of their mouth, and then I used a syringe, or she, from her sucking, could pull the plunger down and would get supplement that way. So even whatever I was pumping would go in there as well. So, and that really helped her become a great breastfeeder. And I did it once I got home as well. And it's something that for most people does take another person to kind of help with everything you're trying to do. But I was able to eventually do it by myself. But if I had known that that was an option for my son, I definitely would have went that route. So at the hospital, ask for the lactation consultant, which every hospital should, and I believe probably does have, and ask those questions. What else can I do? What else can I do? And get the answers that that you want. The nurses, I mean, I think they intend to be great and everything, but they're not. They're not the experts. They're not the experts in that field. So lactation consultant, I want to see them. Ask for help.
And and we saw when we had Paxton, he was full term. He was C-section, and the nurses were good, and we had a lactation that came in, and I wasn't super impressed. And I think that that's also important, that if you don't feel comfortable or you don't feel like you're getting what you need, then seek out another one, because they are really wonderful. You just have to get. I feel like they're all great. But I still think that if you don't have that connection, or you're not feeling like you're getting what you need, then seek out another one, because they really are wonderful. And for us, we had a similar situation as Trish had with the tubes. It was a little different, that Paxton just didn't latch very well. And, he looked like he was latching, looked like he was doing a great job. I was super happy. He jumped on the boob and, did whatever. But he actually initially lost weight, and he had lost, about 2 pounds in the first week, and which is way too much. And so they were very concerned, and so they were telling us, oh, we need to do formula, and I was adamant that was not going to happen. Now, we were supplementing with little bottles after every feeding until my milk came in, and then I was no formula whatsoever. I don't care. He is going to get the calories from my milk. I know that. And so the next thing for us was to seek out a lactation outside of the hospital. I mean, it was at another hospital, but we weren't in the hospital anymore. And so I went, and it was, I think, $75. Was the best $75 I've ever spent. And we took our pump, we took Paxton with us. My husband and I both went, and she just sat there and just kind of watched and just knew within minutes what needed to be done. And we had a bottle sitting right next to me on the end table, and then we had taped the tube up to the breast, and then we had it in there, and then that way we knew if he was actually getting his milk, then we knew how much we had to supplement. Instead of just supplementing, you know, a formula bottle every time or so much milk every time, we could see what he was getting and then supplement whatever wasn't out of there, then that just went into a supplement, and that was very helpful. And, you know, another thing that we had talked about was setting goals for yourself. I mean, if you are struggling with breastfeeding, and that was important for both my husband and I. We were very adamant about breastfeeding. And we both were like, okay, we're going to give it, you know, a whirlwind. We're going to do all these things. You know, I had contacted various lactation, you know, people that I knew of, people who had been very successful breastfeeding, just trying to figure out what it was that I was doing wrong. You know, what is it that I can do to make this better? I mean, anything and everything. I can't tell you how many things I tried. I mean, I probably tried everything under the moon just because I was adamant. And finally, 8 weeks later, he was still having a hard time. We were still doing the supplement. It was an hour and a half for every feeding because we would, you know, attach him up. We'd have him try and breastfeed. We'd do the supplement. I'd pump. And so that would all take at least an hour and a half. And, you know, 30 minutes to an hour later, you're doing it all again. So you really weren't getting any sleep. And one day I just sat there. My husband had been done for a while. He was just like, I reckon, just give up. And one thing that he knows about me is I'm very, very determined. And when I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it. And finally, it was wearing on me. And I finally, on this Sunday at 2 o'clock, I sat there and said, I'm done. If he doesn't get it by the end of the day, I'm done. And we'll just go straight to pumping. And so it was just one thing that I knew that was our goal, and if it didn't reach, that was fine. Then the next thing we were going to do was pump. And, you know, the next feeding, he ended up doing it. And I was like, you little stinker. I mean, he totally knew and could understand what I was saying, obviously. So yeah. I should have said it a lot sooner.
Right. So, and I think some other things is sometimes, you know, if you have a parent or somebody else or a mother or a cousin that had no issues, then it can be, you kind of feel like, well, what's wrong with me? You know, my mom's like, oh, I never had any problems. It was never painful. It was never this. And for some people, it is.
It is, yeah.
I mean, even when you're getting the right latch, it can still be painful, or there's anatomy differences and things like that. So don't feel embarrassed or bad about yourself if it's not like this perfect magical movie moment, you know, or the
it's probably not going to be
the breastfeeding class where the ladies like, you just go like this, you know. Don't feel frustrated in that way whatsoever. Know that you are choosing a hard route. I mean, in some ways, yes, it's easier than getting up and going and making a bottle because you can just grab your child, assuming it's going well, and or when it finally does go well, and put them on there. But it is every so many hours whenever they want it, and you will be tied down to the child. So they will either be going with you many places, or you will be making very quick trips.
Sleep will be interrupted.
You don't really have that option to be like, hey, honey, go take care of the kid. My husband was always very good, though. Even, you know, if I were up breastfeeding, he would be going to do the diaper change for me, or bring me water or whatever. He was up pretty much every time that I was too. And so hopefully you have a supportive person that's like that as well, and it's not just like, well, you have
do it all.
Yeah, you provide the food, so I don't have to do anything. So hopefully that's not the case for you. But just know that you are choosing what's best for your child, and probably not what's the easiest thing to do. For those of you out there that it was a fantastic and beautiful thing, God bless you. I mean,
we wish we were you.
We wish we were you. So,
and you know, the other thing too is the support groups that we almost forgot to mention was, I think that that's very important. I did that with Paxton, and you know, now we've actually have a group of us who have stayed friends, and it's been 4 years, and we're still friends. We still get together. You know, our kids are all within, you know, a couple weeks of each other, and I feel like that was very important to go and ask those questions. And sometimes I went more for the social of it because everyone else was breastfeeding, everybody else had their covers, you know, or some didn't, you know, whatever their preference was. I mean, everybody kind of did their own thing, but you were all there for a purpose, and that was for breastfeeding and supporting each other. And I feel like even, you know, that was my first child, and it was all of us, it was all of our firsts, and I feel like that was important to have that, to be like, oh my gosh, you're going through this, okay, so what do we do here, okay, let's get you through it. And we all had a different breastfeeding story. One of us in the group could only pump, and the breastfeeding just never really happened, but she pumped her heart out and gave the milk that she could. And so whatever you can do, you know, whether you don't make the milk, you know, whatever it is, you know, to do the best that you can to give that milk to your child is definitely helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and whether you do it for 3 months or a year or 3 years or whatever, you know, whatever's best for you. In the end, it's about because, you know, a happy mom is going to be a better mom.
Yes.
So, but we just wanted to, you know, share and put out some things that I didn't know about, and I hope that I
learned about on our journey.
Yeah, I hope that I shared something that, you know, for those of you that are about to, or even with my second child, my experience was different than with my first child. So it isn't always the same. So good luck out there if you're about to have a baby, or if you're currently up really late at night watching this because you are breastfeeding.
And you need to stay awake while you're feeding.
Yes. Then, you know, best of luck to you. You know, drink lots of water, and
get your nutrition.
Get your nutrition. Rest when you can. Have family support also to kind of, you know, even if it's somebody that can come for that hour or whatever, just, you know, reach out to people and know that you're not alone.
We wish you the best.
Yeah, so comment below if you have other tips that we didn't mention, because we're both probably going to have more.
Actually, I just thought of one. KellyMom.com was my go-to.
Yes.
It is the best thing out there, and I think I tried everything on there. I do believe I did.
Yes.
And it was just the best, because I think everything that can go wrong actually went wrong with my first one. And so I would go to Kelly Mom, and there was something there, and I just found it to be the most helpful site that I had found. So,
and I drank the mother's milk tea the second time, and it really did make a difference.
Really?
I truly believe that it did for me.
That's awesome.
So there are things out there. Don't be like a one and done. I tried it and it didn't work. So best of luck to you out there, and as always, take care.
Bye.